All right, thank you so much. Eh, It is a pleasure to be back after, what, maybe 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been a
Cool.
while.
All right, so my presentation for today, well, first of all, thank you all for coming, and it's a pleasure to have the opportunity to talk to all of you. I feel like I'm back at Esalen, and I feel like I shouldn't go back when after the presentation, I should stay on, right?
Hang around. We'd love to have you, yes.
Okay, all right, so this presentation comes out of this book that I published late last year. As Mimi mentioned, the title is Afro-Minimalism and How Black People Are Conditioned Culturally to Enjoy Poverty. When I came up with this title, people said, some of my colleagues, I shared it with some of my colleagues and they said, enjoy poverty? Who enjoys poverty? And I'm like, okay, well, it is up to the philosopher and all the people who are engaged in the liberal arts education to figure out, to explain what we mean by enjoying poverty. So anyway, I hope that at the end of this presentation we'll have an idea of what we mean or what I mean by enjoying poverty. But for this particular lecture or presentation, I decided to make a little bit of a switch. Not a switch, actually, an addition to this whole concept of Afro-minimalism, which I first of all thought of it as a cultural condition. I've added wellness because I am kind of switching a little bit into the area of wellness. I'm studying art and how art is used to achieve positive affect and wellness and all that. So I'm trying to look at how wellness fits into this whole concept of Afro-minimalism. Okay. So for today's lecture, the title is The Culture and Wellness Mix, Afro-Minimalism, an Afro-minimalist examination of the Black poverty paradox. All right, so I should say first of all that I am from Ghana, and I have been in America for a little bit, a little long enough, but at the same time, whenever I have the opportunity to stay in Ghana, I really love it. And maybe about 2-3 years ago, I was in Ghana for an extended period of time. And while I was there, where I lived, there's some vegetation close to where I live. So at least once a week, I will have people who will come by with their cows, a lot of them, right, and graze around my property, I guess, and have fun over there. So I was looking for milk to make cheese. So I said, well, maybe let me talk to these guys and see if they can get me some raw milk. I spoke to about 5 of them. All of them said, oh, I'll give you tomorrow. Oh, tomorrow I'll get you milk. Tomorrow never came. And then I meet them again. Oh, you remember last month you said tomorrow you will get me some milk? I said, oh, yeah, I forgot. Okay, all right, tomorrow. Tomorrow never came. But, so I was thinking about it. I was wondering, what at all are they doing carrying all these animals? See the picture? All these animals. What at all are you doing? What are you trying to achieve by carrying all these animals around on a daily basis? Walking, far. What do you get from it? Because you can't get me milk, you don't sell it. You can't get me meat, you don't sell it. You can't get me anything. So why are you invested in, going around with these animals every day of your life? What was the point? That was the beginning of this thinking around Afro-minimalism. That it appears people have the economic resources, like in this case, look at all of the cows. But at the same time, it is really not intended for economic benefit, at least on a large scale, right? So, as I was thinking about this, just out of curiosity, I checked online to see which countries produce the most milk product, milk, and even cow, meat and all of that. And I realized that the Netherlands is one of such countries. The Netherlands it's actually among the top 15 countries that produce milk and milk products. My question was this. Look, if you look at this map, for example, and if you want to see the Netherlands, it's like the red all the way at the top. So this map is supposed to capture the size of European countries, how they fit into Africa. Oftentimes when you give the size of Africa, people don't have a clearer picture of how big it is. All right? So someone took it upon himself or herself to create a map that takes into consideration the size of 7 European countries, and even China, India, and some other big countries, including the United States of America. So this map gives us an idea of the size of the Netherlands, the red at the top. Right. Now, if you go to Ghana, not even only in Ghana, but all across the south of Africa, all the people that you see with cattle, all the cows and all of that, usually they are not from Ghana. They are probably sometimes from Mali, from Niger, from Nigeria, just walking across Africa with their cows. Right? So now the question is this. If the person who rears cows in Africa has almost the entirety of Africa, right? As grazing land, you can move wherever you want, basically. You cannot get milk out of that. You don't sell milk, you don't sell cheese, you don't sell anything, butter, anything that you can process milk with. You don't sell it. Okay, now look at that. Belgium, very tiny. How is it possible that Belgium, which is so small, like if Belgium were part of Africa, it would have been one of the smallest countries. How come Belgium, Netherlands are able to produce a lot for the global market? That was so strange. Right. So I started thinking that maybe we don't want money. Maybe Africans don't want money. Maybe black people don't want money. So I sort of said, okay, well, this is a personal experience. Let me go into history and figure out if it aligns with some historical facts. And the historical fact that came to mind was the story of Mansa Musa, who is said to be the richest person who has ever lived. Okay, I remember ever mentioning him in a class, and I said, he is the richest person who has ever lived on the earth. And the student said, and he's from Africa? I said, yeah, he's from Mali. And the student said, and so what happened to Africa? I said, I don't know, but we'll find out. A lot of things happened, including slavery, as you mentioned, colonialism, all of that. But at the same time, it looks like culturally, Africa did not also help itself that much. Because if you take slavery, for example, slavery would not have happened if there was no, should I say, collaboration, right, with the Europeans. It would not have happened. Okay. All right. So now let me say a little bit about him. So Mansa Musa, born in 1280, died 1337, became the king of Mali in 1312. He is most known for the pilgrimage that he undertook to Mecca in 1324, right? With an entourage of 1,000 people, right? On a horse and camel. You know, at that time, you couldn't fly, you couldn't even drive, right? So he went from Mali all the way to Mecca in Saudi Arabia on a horse with an entourage of 1,000. And out of that, part of this, the stuff that he went along with included gold. That is what he's actually known for. If you Google him, you will see what I'm talking about. The first thing you will see is gold. Right. He had so much gold because he was the king over Mali, and Mali controlled a lot of gold. One of the things that he did was he went with gold and basically gave it away along the way. You know, wherever he got to, do you want gold? Here you go. Do you want gold? Here you go. If you want gold, here you go. Basically, he gave out a lot of gold to the point where the prices of gold actually started to fall. And the story is that the prices fell for about 10 years before it went back to its original level. So this seems to be a very generous person, right? But at the same time, if you are the leader of a place, you are entrusted with the wealth of the place, right? To manage it and to grow it for the benefit of your people. Now, if you start being too generous with what you got, well, very soon you're going to run out. Because gold does not, how do you say, it's not infinite, right? Gold is a finite natural resource. If you dig at a point, you would not have any more. So, in the practice of his generosity, he gave out a lot of the wealth of Mali, right? Came back, returned to Mali, died about 10 years later. So when the students asked me what happened, I said, well, there a lot of things happened, but just look at it this way. And practically, every leader wants to outdo the previous, right? Every leader has it in him or her instinctively or inherently to outdo the previous. So let's just say Mansa Musa went and he spent maybe $1,000 on the trip. I'm just saying, just using $1,000 as an example. Spent $1,000 on the trip. The next person might want to go with an entourage of 2,000 people, and that might double the cost. Right? And let's just say he gave away, whatever, 10,000 tons of gold. The next might try to outdo that. Right? Okay. The historical record does not say emphatically that the succeeding leaders try to outdo him, but it would be logical to think that if he did that, and remember at that time, Mali had decided to become an Islamic country, that means every leader had to go to Mecca, right? So if every leader over, let's say, 100 years, every time you have to go to Mecca and give away stuff and spend a lot of money, at a point, you have nothing. So you started with a lot, but at a point you have nothing. Right. Okay. So now the question is it that black people or Africans just love the material, the process of gathering the materials, but not the final economic benefit of the material. It seems like, yeah. It looks like it seems logical that maybe people just love the idea of having gold, the idea of having cattle, the idea of having a big farm, the idea of having, I don't know, whatever it is that, is of economic value. People have the enjoyment of having it, not as an economic, not purposely to create an enduring economic gain out of it. All right, so all of these things that I am sort of throwing about, some people have also thought about. I'm not the one who started this whole thinking around the wealth of Africa and the paradox of poverty widespread poverty in Africa. W.E.B. Du Bois was like one of the greatest scholars, period, but certainly one of the greatest Black scholars, said that Africa is a happy place. The masses of Black folk are calmly contented. They are not really interested in making too much money or producing a lot of things and all of that. No, they're just contented with whatever they have. Right? They are happy with what they have. So now, the question is, being happy could lead to you basically devaluing your economic power? Looks like it. That's basically like something that that this point is trying to suggest. Now, so Du Bois made this point about 100 years ago. But before then, or before that, others had made such suggestions. For example, Bishop Whipple is recorded to have said that this about slaves. He says that slaves are a happy race of people, right? The Black slaves are a happy race of people. And if you did not know, if you meet them, and you never knew that they were slaves, you will wonder, you will never imagine that they are slaves, because they are always happy. So it seems like, again, being happy actually leads to you forgetting your circumstances. That's what they are trying to suggest, that people, or Black people, prioritize happiness over, for example, their own bondage, which is a crazy point to make anyway. And then there is another, actually, the Bishop Whipple was talking about the caricature, or the stereotypical character of Sambo, which is one of the stereotypes that people have about African Americans or Black people in America. Another character is the Jim Crow, which is used to represent a happy African person or a happy Black person who is only interested in happiness, interested in entertainment, interested in enjoyment, but is a fool. That's what this Engel 1978 describes it. Okay, so again, remember, these are stereotypes. So stereotypes are like general points that people make. Basically, they are unfounded, but they are used to subjugate people, right? Okay. Now, again, so continuing to think about all of these things and how Africans are characterized, or Black people are characterized as happy-seeking, pleasure-seeking, to the point where they basically are willing to surrender their economic power. I tried to look at some reports or studies, recent ones, that kind of suggest the same trend of thought. And one of it is the Gallup International Survey of 2014. It's not too recent, but It's quite interesting what they found. It says that 80% of Africans reported that they are happily contented, which is something similar to what Du Bois said 100 years ago. Said they are happily contented. They are not trying to do anything with what they got. The next one, World Happiness Report, a much more recent one, 2019, says that African youth are the happiest and optimistic about the world. Okay. Now, because of some of these reports and studies and suggestions and arguments, a lot of people say that, oh, well, even in Africa, Africans don't want economic, the pressure of participating and growing an economy, right? They just want to be happy. And so, and that is actually good for them because there's low depression in Africa. And there's less, mental and psychological health problems in Africa. Well, it is not entirely true though. Because, well, first of all, mental and emotional health is not too much of a priority, in most part of Africa. Governments don't invest in those, right? So we don't have a lot of data to actually make claims like this. So I don't know where they get the data from, but they're able to cook up some data and put it out there like this. And when you look at the data, it kind of fits the trend that they're trying to establish, that Africans are happy people, they seek happiness, and that's all they want. And you can be poor, broke and happy. That's what they want. Okay, so now, after going through all of that, I thought about it and I said, okay, all right, let's see. It looks like there is some level of minimalism, minimalist thinking, minimalist approach to economics in Africa. And so that's how I came up with this concept of Afro-minimalism, which is the cultural mind framing that conditions Africans or Black people to seek minimal temporal and temporary economic advantage. What I mean here, basically, is the reliance on subsistence living, right? So people produce, not that Africans don't produce, they produce, but it is produced for a limited number of people, over a limited space, and also for a limited period of time, right? So the resource is there, land is there, right? But people are not that pressed to say, well, let me cultivate about 2,000 acres of, peanuts, for example. No, maybe 10 acres, because they are looking at their need, right, to cultivate. So they are not trying to cultivate extra and save extra and sell. No, that's too much, right? Okay. Which is a good thing, if not for the fact that the world has changed and the world is going in a direction where it is much more greedier, right? So if your approach to a greedy world is to think minimally, to think and approach the world in a subsistence way, you are at a disadvantage. Because by the time you realize, oh, okay, well, let me expand my farm, somebody else already taken it. Right? Okay, so now, as I thought about this, I wondered, okay, so where did this minimalist approach to life, where did it come from? All right, there are a number of reasons, or a number of things have contributed to this minimalist mindset. But for this presentation, I'm just going to focus on religion. Now, this is a religious school, right? So I can preach a little bit, right? Okay, we all know that religion is a wellness association, right? When I say wellness association, what I mean is that at the very least, religion assures us that spiritually we'll be okay. That's the basis of wellness, right? That you will be okay spiritually. But again, we know that religion does not only deal with spirituality. There is a link between the physical and the spiritual. Actually, the Bible, some part of the Bible, I can't quote it directly, but it says, "Cast your burden onto me," or something like that, right? And I'll give you rest, or something like that. Right? Yeah, casting your burden. If you are burdened, you are distressed. You are in distress. Come to me, and I'll give you rest. Right? And there are so many Bible verses that give that assurance, that hope to people who are in some sort of distress. Right? So that's what I mean by religion being a wellness association. All right. So when it comes to religion in Africa, again, thanks to colonialism, Africa's religious landscape was changed by the arrival of Europeans, right? What kind of change occurred? Every religion has a concept of forgiveness and punishment, right? And blessing, but blessing, I guess blessing is wellness, so that's okay, right? But let's focus on forgiveness and punishment. In Christianity, which is the religion that the colonialists, the Europeans, brought to Africa and forced the Africans to convert to Christianity. In Christianity, when it comes to punishment, if you do something and you are due to be punished, you can pray to God and God will forgive you. That in principle, right? So, say for example, I took your $2. Yeah. And that's your last $2 that you actually need to, buy food. All right. That's your last $2. I took it. You ask me, what is my $2? I have no idea. Meanwhile, it's in my pocket. All right? Okay. Now, I've done something wrong. This is some kind of transgression. Right? But in Christianity, I can still keep my money, your money, right? And then pray to God directly and tell him that I'm sorry. Right? And God will forgive me in principle. Even if you have not forgiven me, even you intend never to forgive me. Right? So, the power to punish and forgive is in the hands of one big person, God, right? The person who was the transgressee, the person who suffered your transgression, has no power, right? I can only be upset, but that's it. If the person prays and God says, yes, I've forgiven you, that's it. In African religious practices, it's not like that. In African religious practices, if you transgress against someone, you have to ask for forgiveness from that person. Right? If not, that person can actually determine the punishment to give you. In Christianity, different. In Christianity, you don't even determine the punishment. Right? You can, even if you wanted to punish me, all you can do is pray to God and say, God, please, please, punish him. And God will decide the type of punishment which is appropriate. In African religion, it's different. You, the person who's been wronged, you determine the type of punishment. So I can go to my God, community God, or whatever, and say, the person who took my money, I want the person to die. Over just yeah, the person can do it. Which is different from Christianity. Again, in African religious practices, the gods are many. Right? So, if I want to punish someone who did something wrong to me, I go to my God. Right? Now, say for example, you did something wrong in West Virginia. That's where I came from. And I came back to my community in Ohio, right? And then I told my God to punish you. If you want to reverse it, you have to come to me. Right? You are in West Virginia. If you want to reverse it, you have to move from West Virginia. Look for me. You don't know where I live. But you have to look for me, beg me, and then if I forgive you, then we can reverse it. If not, no, it's going to happen. At least that's the belief. Right. So, out of that, it means that the African is much more conscious about how to deal with people. Because forgiveness is not in the hands of a God. It's in the hands of a single individual. Right? And we know that human beings are very, very difficult to deal with. So, but while the Christian God is much more compassionate, an individual, if you say, please, I'm sorry, the person might say, no. And it is within that person's right to refuse, if he or she pleases to refuse. So, this kind of sets up in colonial times, it means that it's a clash of cultures. One person who thinks, I can take your stuff and pray to God, and God will forgive me. That's the European coming in with Christianity. And then one person who thinks that, no, I shouldn't do bad things to anybody. Because if I do it, the person can cause some punishment on me. In fact, rather, I should be good to strangers. Because if I do that, that's how I get my blessing. Now, these two people, if they come together, who has an advantage over economic resources and who has disadvantage? Certainly, the European. Because the European can take and pray and will be forgiven. The African wants to please, wants to be hospitable, does not want to cheat, wants to be helpful. So, if I have two and you come to me, you need one, there you go. The European will come and take all of it and go pray about it. And God will forgive. So, from that clash came what is called the Matthew effect. What is the Matthew effect? The Matthew effect is a concept developed by Morton, 1968. And basically it says that if you have an advantage at anything, with time, you grow that advantage. And if you start anything at a disadvantage, basically, you grow with that disadvantage. So in other words, if you are already advantaged, you continue to grow. And the one who is disadvantaged will continue to sink. It came from, I don't know, let me see if I can find it. That concept came from Matthew, let's see. Yeah, it came from Matthew chapter 25, verse 29. And again, I have your permission to preach, right? So I read it. Matthew chapter 25, verse 29, it says, "For to everyone who has will more be given." Right? But from him that has not, even what he has will be taken away. Okay. The one who has more will be thrown at this person. And the one who has not, the little that you have, is going to be taken from you. That is the Matthew effect. So Africa suffered the Matthew effect. Because from these two, from this culture clash, the African is much more giving to please. Right? While the European is taking and doesn't see it as a transgression. And even if it's a transgression, he knows that his God is all forgiving. So he can take it and pray about it. And it did happen, actually. It's not just even about taking it and going to pray. In some instances, they took it with force, including killing, mass killings of people. I mean, just take a look at even slavery. How did it happen? How the heck do you get people, human beings, put them on a ship, tied up and across the oceans to a different country to work for free for the rest of their life? I mean, it's so insane how that was able, how they were able to pull that off. It's crazy. And if you visit any of the dungeons, like I said, I'm from Ghana, so there are a lot of slave castles in Ghana. If you go there, you'll realize that the churches are at the top of the dungeon. The church. So they are upstairs having a church service while the slaves are downstairs waiting for the ship to come get them. Does this make sense? It doesn't make sense. But within the Christian logic, it makes sense because it's okay to transgress and ask for forgiveness. And you'll be forgiven. In fact, you can even decide to, in principle, I'm not saying anybody should do this, but in principle, you can actually be such a terrible person in life, and when you know that this is your last breath, this is your last day on earth, you confess your sin. And according to the Christian principle, if you confess your sins, you'll be forgiven and you'll go to heaven. Actually, there's even another principle that says that, well, if you live your life and it's not that good, there is a place called the purgatory, right? Where it's like you die, but you are not going to hell straight. You go to some place and then you rehabilitate. It's like what is it? It's like prison. It's like parole. It's like parole in the spiritual sense. That is ridiculous, right? But people believe it. I'm not saying don't believe it, but what I'm saying is that if you look at the two, African black people never stood a chance. Because it's like going to war with someone who has guns while you are fighting with a knife. It's just not going to work. Right? Okay. This point that I'm trying to develop is also emphasized in Columbus's letter to Queen Isabella in 1495. And if I can find it, I'll read part of it. Okay, yeah. So, after exploring the Caribbean, he returns and he writes this letter to Queen Isabella. And it says that the people he met are honest people, right? They are very liberal with all of what they have. No one refuses the answer. So if you ask them for something, no one refuses. On the contrary, they themselves invite us to ask for more. Right? Okay. They manifest the greatest affection towards us all, exchanging valuable things. for trifles. Right? So valuable things for useless things. And then it says they are content with the very least they have. And even if they don't have anything at all, they are still content. And it says again that Columbus says, I gave them many beautiful things in order to win their affection, and that they might become Christians, and that they might be eager to search for and gather and give us what they have in abundance and for which we need. So, Europeans went in there with a plan, right? And unfortunately, the plan was perfect for, in terms of the people that they met, the culture of the people they met, the plan that they had was perfect. It was going to work out because the people are trusting, the people want to help, the people want to be hospitable, the people actually want to be humans that have empathy, sympathy, and all of that. But European and the capitalist mind of Europeans was concerned about materials and not about the human being. Right. So, now as a result of this clash of culture within, the context of colonialism, we have certain things that still, I think, certain things that we can say that they are still a legacy of colonialism. For example, if you take a look at this map, if you take a look at this map, for example, over here, you see that when it comes to raw materials, like minerals, like gold, copper, diamond, and stuff like that, they are all, you can see them here, all of them here, in the raw state. Copper, and then energy, oil, gas, you can also see them right here. All of them, this is the map of Africa. All of these places, they have oil and gas, all of these places. Fish, you can see them. Agricultural products, wood, and all of that. Now, when it comes to industry, which is manufacturing, there's nothing here. There is absolutely nothing here. Why? Why? Because the African has been conditioned, and not just conditioned culturally, but also in terms of colonial policies, right? To not add value to its raw material. Just get them and give them away. Get them, give them away. That's all. That's all. That is the basic function of Africans within the global economy. Supply raw materials. And of course, with all the years that the Europeans spent in Africa, that is what they were doing. Forcing the Africans to go get it, bring it, and then they will export them to these European countries. And that is where they will manufacture whatever it is. They will use the raw materials to manufacture finished products that are much more expensive, and then send it back to Africa. So African countries, African economies remain raw material based. Now, if you don't manufacture, if you don't practice manufacturing, if you don't participate in manufacturing, it means that when you are ready to manufacture, you need the help of someone. And at that point, you will have to invite the Europeans in again. So most African economies favor investment from foreign companies and foreign individuals, foreign governments, and stuff like that. Again, external control over means of production, distribution, prices and policies. Raw materials are cheap, cheaper than the final product. And in fact, they are not only cheap, but also the buyers control the prices because raw materials usually are perishable. So if you say, oh no, I'll sell this, one for $2, and then someone says, no, I'll pay 10 cents. Now, this might not be a good example, but if you have something like tomatoes, you have a very short period of time to sell it. So if you say this is $2, somebody says, I'll give you 10 cents. Maybe the first day you will say, yeah, no, I will not sell it. That's the first day because the tomatoes are still fresh. So you say, no, you better give me, the price I'm asking for, or else I'm just going to keep it. Okay, that's the first day. Second day, third day, fourth day, when you go and check the tomatoes and realize that the tomatoes have started going bad, I think you probably might call them and say, all right, how much do you have? They say, oh, I told you I'd give you 2 cents, now I'll give you 1 cent. Say, okay, that's fine. Right. So the policies in terms of pricing and all of that kind of stuff, it is still not controlled by Africa. So because the prices of finished products are always more than the prices of raw materials, African economies are always in the deficit in terms of their trade with other people, because you are always consuming something that's much more expensive than what you sell. Right. Okay, so the next point is that as a country, as a continent, Africa remains in economic distress. If you look at the World Bank publications on countries that are in economic distress, out of the top 20, 15 are African countries. 15 are African countries. Okay. Now, I don't know how much time I have, but I don't want to finish this without talking about Afro-minimalism within Black America. I came up with this point, it's in the book, that the more effort you put into becoming who you are not, the more you reveal about who you are. There's this book, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, by DeGray, published in 2005. That's a very good book, talking about how slavery, even several years after the end of slavery, there is still some legacy of that, some negative effects of slavery on Black people. That is true. But again, I will extend it a little bit and say that legacy, that effect goes back in Africa, not just when Black people arrived in America, but all the way in Africa, how Africans were conditioned, culturally on the continent. Now, in America right now, the most important thing to the average Black person, or let's just say the Black population, is what? You can say, we can say a lot of things, but basically, the Black population in America, what it's been fighting for since the abolition of slavery is American citizenship, becoming an American, being accepted in America, having a place that you belong. And America is not making that easy, right? So you might have a passport, you might have been born here, your grandparents probably born here, but there's still some situations, some structural arrangements that will make you understand that, well, yeah, you are an American, but a different type of American, right? Now, at the same time, so this different type of American is a type of American that America doesn't want, right? At the same time, the Black population of America does not want to be African, right? because of all this propaganda about, Africa being this and this, it's like Africa is a place of what, distress. So you don't even want to identify yourself in Africa. So anyway, so you want to be American so bad, and and America doesn't want you. Now, what do? What do you have to do? Well, a window of opportunity opened with capitalist consumerism, right? Where you feel like, if I cannot be equal to the dominant population, at least if I can consume, own, buy stuff that they consume, we are equal, right? So I'm black, and definitely being black means that I cannot blend in, right? People will find out I'm black and maybe discriminate against me and all of that. But when it comes to living, maybe if I'm black and I'm driving maybe a Mercedes-Benz, for example, that is a sign, that is a commodified sign of equality, that I am equal to, or even better, to the white dominant population. Because if I'm driving a Mercedes-Benz and the other person is driving, what would you say is the cheapest car, the car for the poorest people? If the person said, I'm poor, but I want to buy a car, what car do you think the person will buy? Okay, let's just say a bicycle.
I was going to say a bike.
Let's just say
Ford Focus. I'm not insulting anyone who has a Focus, but yeah.
Well, okay. All right. So either Ford Focus or a bicycle or whatever it is, that person, the black person who is driving a better car, sees himself or herself as equal or better. So shopping, I put it shopping for equality. It's like shopping, consumerism is used as a way of establishing equality. Right? Now, the current environment that we are in has even made that easier, but it's a trap. It has made it easier in the sense that you have credit cards, you have loans, right? So you can buy any car you want. You can buy any house you want, right? And so, but again, like I said, this is a trap because they want you to think that, oh yeah, you can afford anything you want. You can use it to, there's this concept called impulsive buying, right? Impulsive buying disorder, when people shop so that they feel good. That's like something similar to that. But if you keep shopping with money you don't have, at a point, I think the reality will set in and you will be in economic distress, right? Okay. When people are in economic distress, especially when families are in economic distress, one of the traumatic effects of that is that the children, witnessing the trauma, the distress, tell themselves, I have to do something about it. I can't let my parents suffer all the time. Look, our house has been repossessed, or a car has been repossessed. The house has gone into foreclosure. So the child feels that he or she has to do something about it. Now, the effect of that is that the child is unable to delay gratification. The child feels like he or she has to hurry up, right? Do something and come in and help and save the family, right? So the child then grows quicker than he or she is supposed to. The child also has limited time to dedicate to training, maybe on a job, or to go to school, for example, all of that. The child wants to grow up so quickly for a good reason or for good intentions, right? But ultimately, it does not serve the child well. So when people say, well, for example, when people say, we work at the same job, how come I can afford this lifestyle and that you cannot afford this lifestyle? Well, because you are not the same. One is dealing with a family trauma, right? But maybe you are not. All right? I mean, a lot of white kids, when they start working, they are not intending to go home and save parents. No. But black kids, oftentimes, when they start working, some responsibilities will be put on the table for them. Well, you know, you started working, so maybe you should pay the phone bill, or then maybe you should pay that bill. Maybe you too. You have to start paying groceries, right? And so this child now has to take on adult responsibilities, right? Okay. That does not always work out well, and I have this example to show. Shaq O'Neal made an interesting point, that he was able to spend $1 million in one day, his first contract. $1 million in one day. Are you crazy? How is that possible? It is possible if you are intending to save a whole family, right? Okay, so he got his first check. $1 million. He bought 3 cars, Mercedes, right? Okay, spent $200, and even to customize it, even the cost of customizing the car is more than the car itself. That's stupid. But perhaps, you know, all this consumerism and the feeling that he needs to prove himself, right, made him feel like he should do that. He bought 3 cars for his mom, one for his mom, one for his dad, and one for himself. Bought jewelry. Eventually, when he checked his account, he was owing $80,000. And he said, well, I've not spent $1 million here, so how do I owe? And they told him, well, remember, they have to take $400 for taxes. What? They have to take $400 for taxes. He didn't know. He was just spending. No, so the $1 million that he thought he had, he actually had $600, and he never knew, and he just kept spending. But he was lucky. Others were not lucky. This documentary came up, I think, 2020, not too long ago, about the life of Antoine Walker. He played professional basketball for 13 years, and he made $110 million. When he retired, he filed for bankruptcy. That's strange, but not too strange. And quite interesting, I think the title of the documentary is very befitting. It says, "Gone in an instant." The money, once you get the money and you want to prove yourself, right? You want to belong, you want to be regarded, you want to be respected, you want to claim your citizenship. Through commodification, the money can go really quickly. Same happened to Gary. He was a child actor, and his parents set up, what is it called? A fund for him, a trust fund for him, so that when he turned 18, he could have some money to start life with. When he turned 18, he found out the trust fund, which is supposed to have $17 million, actually had $200,000. The parents have used it, unfortunately. And that actually got him depressed and, you know, went through a lot of stressful situations until he died. All right. So anyway, let me sort of conclude the presentation. So the idea here is that Afro-minimalism is an anti-capitalist capital accumulation. The point is that it's not that people are okay with capital, but they are not okay with accumulating the capital. It's like, don't grow it, right? Don't grow it. We are okay, just have enough. Enough for yourself, enough for the present moment, and maybe enough for a certain period of time. But don't try to grow it because that's not our style. All right? Now, re-minimalization. So if you have this mindset that capital accumulation is bad, don't grow your money. What if you find yourself in a lot of money or in a lot of economic resources? That's where re-minimalization comes in, because you feel like you should actually get rid of it. Just like the story of Mansa Musa, going on this trip to Mecca and deciding that he will give everyone gold. Because he has so much. He will give everybody gold. Okay, and then this whole mindset of either for minimalism or re-minimalization is a cultural trauma. It's something that people have to consciously unlearn, given the fact that the present economic landscape is one that is rooted in competition. You have to compete, you have to produce, and you have to control what you have. If you cannot control what you have, you cannot grow what you have. Someone will take it. Remember the Matthew effect. Someone will take it and grow it and keep it and sell it back to you. All right. In the long run, basically, Afro-minimalism as a wellness mindset does not work out, because in the long run, you remain poor, and even if you are rich, because you have no control over your riches, somebody else will take it, putting you in this stress. Any question? Any question? Any contributions? Thank you so much for listening. Oh, yes.
I just wanted to ask something based on the Matthew effect. It basically is saying that if I have little, I can't grow that into my own advantage. It's just going to be taken no matter what.
Yes. Well, if you have little, most likely you will start at a disadvantage. And it didn't say if you are not careful, but that's what I'm thinking. That if you are not careful, you will remain at a disadvantage.
Okay.
But it is possible to, you see, that's why it's all about the mindset. Because look at it this way. Europeans came to Africa with nothing, right? Africans had the material. But the mindset was different. The mindset was that of sharing and giving. And so even though Africans had more, in terms of mentality, they couldn't actually sustain or hold on and have control over it. They gave it up. So in terms of mentality, and that's why I feel like Afro-minimalism has to be, we have to unlearn certain things, because even if you have more, if your mindset is minimalist, you minimize the value of what you have. And then the Matthew effect will set it. Because if you don't value what you have, somebody will take it. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you for explaining.
Yeah.
So I couldn't help but think about Aikwe Armand
The beautiful ones.
and also 2000 Season
Uh-huh.
and sort of losing the way and then leading to this process.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we're obviously in a place where we can't go back to the way. We're not in that world
Yeah.
anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So as not to be an Afro-pessimistic sort of a concept,
Yeah.
right? How do we move this conceptualization of what essentially was a socialist way of being that worked, that functioned for traditional African people
Mm-hmm.
into a modern day context? And I think a lot of the younger African politicians are thinking in this way, But how do you do this in a world that for 500, 600 years has been steeped in a model of African exploitation?
Yeah. That's a good question, and it's a very difficult thing to do. Because, like you said, we are living in a global environment where now the influence is coming in from all directions. European influence is coming in from all directions. So even as a leader, when you try to change certain things, you need the cooperation of your people. And if you don't have enough cooperation of your people, just like, you know, I'm sure you probably have read a little bit about Nkrumah and, you know, and the first generation leaders. They wanted to do that. They really, genuinely, really wanted to change the way things were going economically. They wanted to have more control over the economic resources of the continent as a whole. But they didn't have the support of the people. And not only did they not have support of the people, but foreign interest groups came in and removed them. Some of them even, you know, lost their lives in the process. So once a foreign interest group comes in and removes the one they perceive to be a problem, they will install someone that they can control. Unfortunately, and once they install someone they can control, the person can stay in power for as long as they want. No one will complain. I mean, you can complain, but it won't, nothing will happen. And so, you know, eventually you just have to decide, do you want to live or you want to change the system? I believe the environment is getting better. Right now, there's less of coups and, you know, external governments interfering in the removal of governments across Africa. I'm sure they probably are doing it in a different way. But I think we are in an environment where if African leaders decided that no, this is what we're going to do, I mean, there will be some economic challenges to that, but maybe that's where it should start. You know, so I don't know. I don't know how to change it. We want to participate in the global economy, but we don't fully have a winning mentality. And so if you don't have a winning mentality, you're going to be losing all the time. Any other question, contribution? Thank you.
Well, thanks for coming. I'm gonna hold my class in here now. Anyone who's welcome to